CC-7878, more commonly referred to as Thorner, was a clone commander within the Grand Army of the Republic. As a commander, Thorner was placed as the overseer of the 615th Legion, a siege, rescue, and ground recovery legion within a larger Republic military body known as the 21st Pathfinder Corps. Thorner's personality can be described as a brave, caring, and competent military man. However, he could also be considered somewhat of a perfectionist and workaholic. Throughout the war, he became increasingly distasteful of it, and his love for his men outweighed his love for almost anything else, including the opinions of his Jedi superiors. While he came to respect the Jedi that were alongside him, he ultimately saw them as an unnecessary addition to the war and its primary cause, and blamed them for the fact that they could not keep one of their own from defecting. Over time, he began to see his general, Pharos Gerne, as a skilled warrior and honorable equal. This sense of equality was mutual, as in the eyes of the Jedi, Thorner was abnormally independent for a clone, even prior to his ARC training. His knack for perfectionism often came from his skill as an on-field tactician, considered one of the clone army's best improvisers. And yet, if all parties followed his layout, success was inevitable. When an operation did fail, however, it would frequently be due to Rylus Zal, the Jedi commander of the 615th. Zal had his own personal qualms with most clones, but Thorner outright despised the young Jedi, as during the Battle of Rishi, Rylus' diversion from Thorner's plan ultimately caused several clones within the 615th Legion to die, alongside numerous Rishians. Since this event, while Thorner would often talk battle tactics with Pharos, he would very rarely address Rylus directly. The earliest days of Thorner's military career go back prior to the Battle of Geonosis, where clone commanders underwent training from numerous bounty hunters under the hand selection of Jango Fett. One of these trainers was a Mandalorian exile under the name of Bolin Eldar. He would train several clone commanders frequently. He increasingly pushed many to be clone commanders to the brink, using harsh drill tactics and weighing odds against them. These unnecessarily rigorous training methods would eventually push Thorner to use illegitimate strategies in combat, building his creativity in on-field strategies for the later war to come, and even stealing Bolin's personal Vibrosword to use in a combat simulation. While the Kaminoan trainer saw this with distaste and threatened to have Thorner decommissioned, Eldar took a particular interest in Thorner's training from this point and suggested he be allowed to continue honing his sword proficiency under Bolin's guidance after hours. Bolin mentioned CC-7878 used the sword more like a flower with a thorn, a Thorner he would put it, and while it would take time to catch on, CC-7878 would eventually be referred to as Thorner by other clones and Bolin respectively. When the Clone Wars broke out, Thorner would lose contact with his pseudo-mentor, and due to this, when he heard of Bolin's death, it was far too late. In his Phase 2 armor, Thorner would then pay homage to the Mandalorian by altering the helmet's visor to represent a more traditional Mandalorian T-shape. Throughout the war, the 615th would go on countless missions under the command of Thorner, from the earliest Battle of Felucia to the final days of the assault on Megiddo. Several events would occur throughout the war, including early damaging of his inhibitor chip at the hands of an unsanctioned separatist bioweapons experiment, which increasingly meddled with Thorner's mind for the duration of the war. Thorner's relationship with his Jedi General Pharos Gerne would change throughout the war. Initially, Thorner saw the Jedi with respect and honorability. However, throughout the Battle of Felucia, this view would be warped. Pharos cared and held the lives of the clones under him with high regard, which was something Thorner commended. However, seeing the Jedi in battle and conjuring strategies put Thorner's self-perspective, and in turn all the clones, to be equal to that of the Jedi. He came to regard Pharos as a friend and a dear colleague, however would often question and even one-up his battle strategies, showing his skill as a commander was arguably on par if not greater than the Jedi's. While he would hold Pharos with high esteem, and generally respect his final orders, Thorner's overall perspective of the Jedi changed to an extremity of Pharos' views, that the war was completely useless and that the Jedi were not fit for command and were merely peacekeepers. Thorner's faith in the Republic in itself fanned the flames for this belief, and while he kept it to himself, he believed the Jedi should have been removed from commanding ranks and moved to voluntary support for worlds in distress. While Thorner's relationship with Pharos was upholding, his relationship with the Jedi commander and Padawan, Rylus Zal, was far from it. Numerous times throughout missions and skirmishes, Rylus would diverge from battle plans and take matters into his own singular hands. While Rylus had his own reasons for a lacking care in clone troopers, that didn't shy Thorner away from the fact that Rylus inadvertently caused the death of several clone troopers in his legion on Rishi. This event changed Thorner even further, as he would often not address the Jedi commander directly throughout the rest of the war and came to dislike the young Jedi. When Order 66 was initiated in the late days of the Clone War, Thorner initially carried out the order, shooting his befriended Jedi General Pharos Gerne in the back. Tragically, as Pharos turned to see his men fire upon him, he would continue to relay the order and even track down the Padawan Rylus Zal as his mind wandered into further disgust as to what he'd done. Pharos' final expression as he looked to Thorner in the way he did in quite a display just prior to firing at Rylus. He hesitated to fire and froze. He fell to the ground as his inhibitor chip actively malfunctioned inside his head. His fellow clones suspected the Jedi had injured him and quickly sedated him. Mere months into the Empire's formation, Thorner would think and reflect heavily on what occurred to the end of the war. While his brothers believed their actions were justified, he questioned it each second of each day. After the war was over and Order 66 was complete, Thorner would contemplate what he'd done before many other clones had, and abandoned the early Empire merely months into its formation as he lost faith in its cause. Some point in the dead of night, Thorner took his essential armors, mementos, and Vibrosword and left his former allegiances behind. He would find a new home in the underworld of Coruscant, working as a hired thug for numerous minor crime groups. During this time, he would come into contact with a bounty hunter named Rexus, who Thorner had previously fought during the Clone Wars. He recognized the distinct gray and red scales on him instantly. Rexus was the first mate of a larger mercenary collective known as the Null Crew, at this point in time only consisting of Rexus and a Mandalorian by the name of Thorun Ordo, who were able to point Thorner in the right direction. For some time, Thorner would then become a mercenary operating under the alias of Theo. During this time, Thorner also rebuilt a reprogrammed BX Commando battle droid, who he nicknamed Fior. This would act as a sort of coping method for his PSD of the war, seeing a droid as a friend and not as a killing machine, a nail in the coffin that neither side of the war won. Thorner, now known as Theo, and his droid Fior would continue to be a mercenary duo for some time before he came into contact with a former comrade and fellow war veteran, CC-1322, also known as Trig, of the 30th Battle Battalion, and Zay Arlen, a surviving Jedi. Thorner and Fior would then leave their mercenary life behind to accompany Trig and Zay in hiding, leaving a life of peace to avoid the Empire's reign. It is possible that Thorner merely died of old age, however that is entirely unknown. The characters featured in this video follow the Clone Wars Ultimates timeline, which you can check out on the creator's webpage. If you enjoy Fanon lore videos like this one, then please do click the like and subscribe for more. You may also check the description down below for submission details. Also, since Fanon material isn't official Star Wars canon, characters and stories are all subject to change in future updates. That'll be all, and may the Force be with you.